This next story is heartbreaking. It has to do with the Pinecrest nursing home in Bobcaygeon that I've been talking about, where there's an outbreak in the long-term care home there. It has about 65 total residents. Now that, as of yesterday, 23 had passed away. It just came out today that this nursing home had 16 people die before they started to separate the sick from the healthy. For 2 weeks, they had declared that there was a respiratory outbreak in this nursing home, and they did nothing about it. They left the sick people in a room with a healthy person. They didn't separate them at all. And the only reason that they ended up separating them, this is Sarah Gardner. She's worked there for 12 years at the Pinecrest nursing home in Bobcaygeon. She said, the reason we actually have space now is because we've lost residents. So those 65 people that they were in their care to look after, it took 16 of them to die so that they could be able to isolate people from the healthy and the sick away from each other. Over a third of the people in this nursing home have passed away. And it took 16 of them before they even started to actually quarantine people. I am completely amazed at the complete and utter lack of any kind of... It's amazing to me. I'm speechless. 16 people have to die before, and you're 2 weeks into a respiratory outbreak that's already been declared, and then you finally start separating people, and the only reason you can separate them now is because you have more space? Was there not some way of, taking, let's say, the people who were ill and maybe moving them to an off-site location? Is there nothing they could have done? I don't believe it. There's no excuse for that in a modern country like Canada. It's ridiculous. Anyways, now on to our Ontario numbers for the day. We now have 4,726 people who have COVID-19. That's up by 379 people. Now that's a little bit higher than yesterday, but still not as high as last Friday when we had 426 new cases. 153 people have died of COVID-19 now in Ontario. That's about 3.2% of all the people who've contracted COVID-19 have passed away here in Ontario. We've now tested basically 81,000 people. We're waiting for the results on about 691. Now, of the people who are positive for COVID-19, 614 of them are in the hospital, with 233 in the ICU and 187 on the ventilators. Now, the ventilators is what you're seeing all across the news that people are trying to find. It's good that we only have 187 on ventilators, which means we have a good supply of ventilators for the next little while anyways, assuming there's not a massive spike. And in other news, speaking of seniors and passing away and so on, the lawyers are now seeing a real uptick for people who are looking for wills, their estate planning, and also living wills, power of attorneys, that sort of thing. We have seen a massive spike across the province and across Canada in people looking for those legal documents. Basically, people have realized that they can't procrastinate on this any longer, and that if they do get sick, they'll get sick, they could die very quickly, and they need to be able to have things set up so it's not an issue for their family and friends when they die, in terms of infighting between family over money or houses and heirlooms and things like that. And also, with COVID-19, it's very important to have what's called a living will. For those of you who don't know what a living will is basically you're still alive, but you can't make decisions. So, for example, you designate one person, and that person then makes your medical and your financial decisions. That also includes things such as, at what point do you not resuscitate someone, depending on how ill they've become. Are they capable of recovering, or are they just on a breathing machine, nothing's going to happen, and someone has to make a decision? That's what a living will is. Basically, it's a surrogate for making decisions for both your health and your financial well-being. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that in most cases, the way a living will works is the person has to physically be there to make the decision. Now, with hospitals restricting access, this is becoming an issue because people aren't allowed visitors. Even when someone's at the point where they're almost dying or in the process of dying, they're still not allowed visitors. People are saying goodbye on the phone and not in person right now. Well, most living wills, when you become the surrogate, you have to tell the doctor in person. So they're now looking at ways of sort of putting, modifying the living wills so that you can also make the decision over the phone, by email, or on a video conference, for example, let's say Skype or Zoom. That is now being looked at as an option because they don't want people going into the hospital, and obviously the people who are the most sick are the ones that need the most decisions made in terms of what they're going to do medically about that individual. We'll be right back.